Peace. I want to talk about the effects of a hyphenated identity. Forget all those syllables. What is a hyphen? It separates something, right? What is an identity? It defines somebody. So, I'm going to go into African American. Is that real? Can you have a hyphenated identity and people take you seriously? Does that explain the conditions of, the 40 million strong here in America? Well, first we have to go back to what we were taught. Okay. So 40 million, roughly, black people live in the continental U.S., right? Now, isn't it peculiar that the lion's share of kidnapped victims to be sold in the Western Hemisphere as slaves, most were taken to Brazil, all right, Portuguese colony. After that, you had the West Indies and the Caribbeans, okay? But a very small few amount of people came through mainly Charleston Harbor and that slave port. But my point is, a small number came through to the belly of the beast. So how in the world can not even 500,000 people come here, but you get 40 million individuals out of that? Well, I had this conversation with a friend of mine, and she said, "Oh, reproduction, dude. Down the line, and people keep reproducing." I understand that. It's very logical and sequential, but it doesn't account for the facial differences, the hair texture differences. Okay, there's no way that every descendant of so-called black people, African Americans, came from Africa. It makes no sense. And we're going to get into this in further videos. But let's just think real quick. Everybody who's gone through the public school system, or maybe even just for, a trivial escape to something, everybody's been to a museum. And America has some very nice museums, okay? So does London. Talk about that later. Have you ever seen a slave ship in a museum? And I'm not here to serve anybody's feelings or be all wishy-washy and touchy, but let's be honest, white people love trophies. Hoisting the great victory. We find that in deer heads, statues, whatever, okay? Testaments to white glory, all right, you know what I'm saying? Well, that system, as brutal as it was, prompted a lot of Caucasians into the arrogance that we see today. That this is their country, that they had a God-given right to come here and brutalize people into molding it into a new paradise for them. And the plantations were their castles. Okay, very sloppy, very, non-rhythmic way to live. Very unnatural. Anyway, so we know that certain tribes of Native Americans started to mix down the line, okay? Yeah, the Native Americans you see at powwows today, I'm not stripping nothing from them, but the first Indians, the ancient Indians on this land, had to be copper-colored. That's in Christopher Columbus's autobiography, or his journal, excuse me. Okay, so when he went into the Caribbean, he saw the Arawak Indians who could pluck gold from the riverbank. They were copper-colored people. Okay, the first people in Florida, very heavily melanated, dark copper-colored people. All your OG Southerners. And isn't it ironic that those people would be displaced from their history and be forced to work their ancestors' land? If you understand my point. So we have to get out of defending this false narrative. Okay? Because it's painful. It's meant to be painful. That's why you have so many slave movies. That's why you have all of these triggers to go back to a time where you were traumatized genetically over and over and over, men and women, over and over and over and over and over again. And people love to say, Well, how do you explain light-skinned people if we weren't mixing and da 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 da? We know every single phenotype was present on this continent as well as the African continent. Now, that's not to say that nobody came from Africa, okay? But 40 million African American, that uniform, putting all this in one group, that doesn't make any sense. I've done my own blood test. You can look at my nose and find this nose on ancient drawings in Mexico. Does that mean I'm Mexican? No. But understand my point, the synchronicity. Okay. The synchronicity. I'm going to be going into specific tribes in later videos, but I want this to be clear. So-called black people, you came from this land and all over the world. There's nowhere you haven't been. And I don't give a damn if you don't believe me or that hurts your feelings because you're so comfortable with being just a Negro who made it. Fuck all that. You know what I'm saying? It's time to wake up to who you are. You don't have to believe me. Do your own research. I had a professor in college tell me this firsthand. You know what I'm saying?